Just when we thought, the Mets finally starting to break out with their offense, led by Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor today. The rest of the lineup, however, produced little to nothing, and that ultimately led the Mets to once again faltering to the Milwaukee Brewers, in which they are now 3-18 in their last 21 games in Milwaukee. And this is not an inaccurate stat. I'm almost certain it's factual. I'm pretty sure it was 3-17 heading into today's game, and now it's 3-18 as the Mets lose in a walk-off thanks to Mitchell hitting a walk-off home run off of Adam Ottavino, who was not happy about that pitch placement. Threw it. It was right down the pipe in his wheelhouse, a little bit low, and that is the ball game. How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in. I'm not happy. No one is happy. I mean, we basically did a rant yesterday when we were only game 6 into the season because of just how putrid the Mets looked for a 24-hour span. It's one thing, again, when you have no offense, but when you have no pitching either, you can't expect anything to go right. Now, today, I give the Mets credit. At least there was some offensive production from guys leading the way, but you know that without Lindor and Alonso, there is no pop in this lineup. We know that by now. Even early in the season, we know that by now. And yes, they can win games without pop, but it's imperative throughout the course of a normal 162. We learned from last year, and now today we see they have the pop, great, but they don't have the pitching. David Pearson didn't look sharp today. Really pitching-wise, John Kurz, David Robertson, both solid, but then you have Adam Ottavino coming in the non-save situation there in the 9th. I love Adam, but he is notorious for giving up those bombs every now and then on full counts. Again, did not like that pitch, and it led up being the game difference. So, guys, I want to know, what is your raw reactions? We're going to be deep diving the nitty-gritty innings 1 through 9 about this ball game, because, again, the Mets did make this a close ball game after it looked like that maybe it was going to be over when it was 4-1 earlier on. The Mets got on to Corbin Burnes, which I'm happy about. It's funny how the Mets have done their best offensively this year when facing starters, and the 2 stars they've hit the best thus far are Sandy Alcantara and Corbin Burnes. I mean, that's great, but you got to hit against guys that are lower levels, and what we saw in the Wade Mileys, and then the Freddie Peraltas in game 1, and then the Jesus Luzardos against Miami. This team has been so Jekyll and Hyde to start the year. They're below 500. It feels like that this is the first time in a long time that we've seen them below 500. Was there any point in the 2022 season in which the Mets were below 500? And they were. Let me know in the chat. But more than anything, guys, before we get into this, and I have a lot of numbers to break down with you all, this won't be a terribly long show today because we will be having our podcast live around 8 p.m. Eastern. Myself and Joe Sorare. Wrecker is out of town, but we will be having a little fun graphic in there for him, so it looks like he's still there. We're going to be sharing our further raw reactions to this brutal start to the season, being swept by the Brewers in Milwaukee, and then looking ahead for tomorrow's game, starting with McGill on the bump for the Miami series, in which I'll be in attendance for that game for the home opener. I know many of you guys will. But before we get into anything else, guys, what I honestly want, because I feel it's deserving, spam L's in the live chat right now. For people on replay in the comments, spam L's too. This was an absolutely atrocious series overall. Love the pop today. Do not get me wrong. There were some positives to take away on the offensive front, but L's still need to be spammed. Love you too, Mama Warren. Appreciate you chiming in. Shout out all my OG members and followers as always. Thank you guys all so much for being here, but spam the L. We need L's in the chat because, again, at the end of the day, this was a game that the Mets had in their grasp, and they let it get away once again. The previous 2 days, they weren't even existent, but even a tight game, I appreciate that's a tight game, but I still don't appreciate the loss. So spam those L's. It's deserving. 1200, thank you so much for Dono. He says, would rather trust a drink from Cosby this lineup's offense. Early but discusses Sapucky would have won it. I'm going to leave no comment on that front, but thank you so much for the donation. My goodness, talking about dark humor to start this one off. That's all I got to say on that front. But yeah, spam those L's. It's as simple as that, guys. I have a lot to get into about this ball game. But before we break down inning by inning, let's just hop into this one, okay? Let's just talk for a second, emphasizing the offense here. Pete Alonso, fantastic. Francisco Lindor, fan-flippin-tastic. Lindor today with 2 doubles, 3 hits, and drove in, had 2 runs. Pete Alonso, 2 absolute nukes today off of Corbin Burnes, which we love to see. He had a beautiful home run against Corbin Burnes towards the second half of last year. Really won the series that the Mets clinched playoffs last year, actually, is when that happened. He had a beautiful home run off of him, and it was not a good pitch placement to do it, but he did it down low and in and ripped it. He was Corbin's daddy today. But look at the rest of this offense, right? Nothing. LeCastro at DH because he stole a base today, and the Mets couldn't drive him in. Vogie was the starting DH, but Vogie didn't do anything either besides a walk that let LeCastro on later in the game. I mean, the vast majority, it's funny how, like, the Mets past couple days, their contact hitters have been getting on base. Yesterday it was Nemo McNeil, but nothing from Alonso Lindor. Now today, when it's Alonso and Lindor, it's nothing from anyone else. It's like it's a seesaw. It's one way or the other. We can't have it both ways, unfortunately. And then as we get on to the pitching today, and again, I'm going to break down the game inning by inning, but I just want to emphasize this stuff quick. I mean, again, David Pearson, not sharp today. Again, he kept the Mets in the game, which I appreciate, but still not sharp. Drew Smith wasn't sharp either as relief outing. John Curtis, absolute beauty today. Really sharp 2 innings. David Robertson, easy 1, 2, 3 in the 8th, and then Ottavino just had to have that pitch where he had it to let Mitchell, the rook, hit that bomb to right to walk this one off from Milwaukee. This was a Milwaukee Brewer dominance this entire series. Even today, when they didn't have their sharp pitching from one of the best pitchers in the NL and Corbin Burns, they still have the offensive production. Brian Anderson and Luke Voigt looking like Goldie and freaking Arenado out here with their elite defense out of nowhere. 2 guys that, again, were Brian Anderson, who single-handedly helped beat the Mets this series and sweep the Mets, was a non-tender by the Marlins. Luke Voigt, who was signed a minor league deal late in the season, off-season with the Brewers, sharp today, had a couple hits himself. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And now, let's just talk about it now to get it out of the way, and then I'll break down the game, because I do want to give some props. If there's any positive today, aside from Lindor, and aside from some of that pitching, some, not all, it is the player of the game in Pete Alonso. Again, I have to give Pete props today. He really showed up, and I appreciate the fact that he showed up against Corbin Burns, of all people, as well. Now, I know you might be saying, well, Burns, of course, he didn't look sharp in his first outing this year, and he didn't look sharp today either. I mean, he gave up 6 earned on 4.1 innings. He wasn't great. David Pearson outpitched Corbin Burns today. Yes, that is an actual fact. But I do want to give a little tip of the cap to Alonso today, because he at least did something today, was providing that offense when the game needed to be tied. He came up clutch and gave the Mets the lead, but again, the rest of this Mets offense couldn't show up, and the pitching just unfortunately couldn't get it done. Yeah, so Pete Alonso, he is my player of the game. Normally, I wouldn't be doing player of the games after losses, but again, today was warranted, in my opinion, given the fact that he had 2 absolute nuke jobs off of Corbin Burns, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs for Big Meat Pete, Polar Bear Pete, Pistol Pete, however you want to call him. That is your player of the game. But now, let's talk about this ballgame. Let's deep dive it inning by inning. That's what I want to do right now, because I'm not going to rant like yesterday. Again, I'm happy that the Mets at least had an offensive effort today, but I'm certainly not happy about them getting swept, and it sucks. And there's one thing that I will say about this, aside from the Mets being so, pardon my French, dog shit in Milwaukee. I can't believe that they are 3-18 in their past 21 games against the Milwaukee Brewers in Milwaukee. Like, how is that even possible? But when you think about it, how many good moments have we had in Milwaukee aside from the Mets clinching playoffs there last year? We've had very little. I feel like it was yesterday. Let me know, OGs, Mets fans for multiple years. You would know this. I'm trying to think what season it was. It was either 16 or 17. The Mets had a ridiculously long game in Milwaukee, extra innings. If that's when Jay Bruce was on the team, I'm pretty sure. It had to have went to, I don't know, at least maybe 16 innings. It went deep in the game, and the Mets still lost. I stayed up for that game. I was on and off, dozing off, and I can't think of any good memories aside from last season clinching playoffs where Lindor had the home run. I think Canna had a home run maybe in that series too. I know Alonso had it on Burns, but nothing. I mean, aside from that, nothing. So, Milwaukee, I want nothing to do with you. Again, specifically in Milwaukee. I mean, it is the Mets' kryptonite. As simple as that. They were a shit show for 24 hours span, and today, provide offense, but still wasn't enough to get over that hump. Let me address some donations here, and then I'll break down this ball game, guys. Dave, thank you so much for a donation. He says, Robertson should have pitched 9th. Bad Buck movie. Again, you can certainly make that argument. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, that Ottavino pitch ended up being the difference maker. Should the Mets have provided more offense earlier, especially when they had El Castro at second with less than 2? Absolutely. But hindsight's 2020 now. It doesn't matter, I suppose, right? Matthew, thank you so much for the $5 holla. He says, the way they hit Burns today, we'd win. I was wrong. Am I wrong? Or is it often where the Mets hit teams better pitchers, but not? You're 100% right, Matthew. Normally what we saw last year was the Mets, last year specifically, the Mets did struggle facing plenty aces, especially southpaws that were aces. And then it was guys in the back end of the rotation, right? Now this year, they're hitting best starter-wise is Alcantara and Corbin Burns. Make it make sense. I'm happy they're doing that, but I want to see more than that. I want to see more depth in this offense too, stepping up like they did in Miami. I mean, the Tommy Phams, the Mark Cannas, the Brendan Nimmos of the world all stepping up in that first series. Wasn't enough this series. Mark Canna was non-existent in this. Pham had a little playing time, not going to harp on him. But, I mean, and we had Luis Gourmet starting at third base today again over Eduardo Escobar. Okay, the fact that we're already starting Gourmet that many times at third base tells you that, one, Eddie's bat is not only ice cold, but two, hopefully this is a sign in the right direction for Brett Baty to make his Mets season debut sooner than later, because there is good news. If there's any good news to come out today, it's the following. And it sucks that I'm saying good news because it isn't. It's better than what could have been. Brett Baty is only day-to-day with his thumb injury that he sustained yesterday, his thumb soreness, that same thumb that he injured and had surgery on to end his 2022 campaign with the Mets towards the end of the year. And Justin Verlander got further imaging done, and there shows a reduced inflammation with his current injury in that armpit area, so he'll continue throwing. But as soon as he's available, probably assuming it's retroactive, maybe around April 11th or so, he should be activated. So we're gonna miss JV for at least one more start, and then he should be back in this rotation. That's good news on the injury front at least, but for Baty especially, Eddie, ice cold to start the year. We know that. Gourmet didn't provide anything with the bat today, but did have a strong play with the glove, was sharp there in the hot corner. But again, there's a lot of things that I'm still not happy about from today. I'm not going to go off screaming my head off, though, kind of how I felt yesterday, because I will give the Mets kudos for at least providing offense. But I'm still obviously gutted for them to get swept. And like I said, was there any point? Can someone please tell me? And thank you guys for the compliments on the new setup and the graphics. I appreciate that a lot, guys. I'm excited to get callers in and guests on, hopefully starting next week, so you guys can be a part of it more too. But I got to ask everybody, because I said this earlier and I'm not sure, and I appreciate the subscription, Yankees fan Jeff. Were the Mets below 500 at any point last year? And guys, the only reason why I'm not taking calls today is because it's still not properly set up. I don't want to have audio issues. But next week is when I'm hoping to start it. Were the Mets below 500 at any point last season? So I'm like, a part of me is like, oh, maybe this is a good thing that the Mets have early adversity, because they didn't have much at all for the entirety of the first half last year. And then when they started to face it big time in the second half, they didn't know how to handle it. We saw what the Phillies did last year after having a putrid first month and first half. We saw what the Braves did after being a 500 club throughout the first half of last year. We saw what the Braves did in 2021, being a mid-team, to say the least, leading up to the trade deadline when they won all of 2021. We saw what the Nationals did. Being not a good team for a good portion of the year in 2019. So, part of me is like, I shouldn't care that much, but at the same time, should this continue, I need the Mets to make sure that they make the proper adjustments, okay? And adjustments where you don't decide to wait until, the end of the year to bring up Baty over Escobar again. Adjustments like that. And pitching-wise, rotation, if you're not named Kodai Senga, you haven't done much of anything for this rotation, right? Let's be real. I know we're through the first week of games. I get it. But these are things, though, that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Because I looked at Max's advanced numbers yesterday, and then we'll break down the game. I apologize, guys. I just got a lot to say right now. I looked at Max's advanced numbers, looking pitch by pitch through Baseball Savant last night and earlier today, further. And his pitch, everything was to the norm. So I'm hoping that Max's start yesterday was more of that anomaly, and I'd expect he will bounce back. He didn't have Jurassic dip in the velo like we saw with Carrasco after just a couple innings in this series opener in Milwaukee. So, yeah. All right, let me get us some donations here. Luis, thank you for that. Normally scoring 6 runs and still losing, I blame the pitching. But I'm expecting Baty and maybe Vientos being called up soon just to add a spark line. You have no reason not to bring these guys up in the next month or so, because it's imperative for the Mets to make sure that they know what they have internally before getting to the trade deadline. At minimum, a month of production or seeing what you have in these internal guys. Because if you don't, then it's the same situation as last year. The Mets could sit on their hands, God forbid, leading up to the deadline, and then they bring up their kids, and then maybe their kids aren't producing nearly as much as what you'd expect because they're still kids. They're uncertainty. So we have to actually see them on the team and get some decent outings. Like Ronnie Mauricio hit 2 ding-dongs today for Syracuse. Awesome to see. He's a guy that I wouldn't be shocked is up with the Mets before the end of the year. Maybe if they toy him more in that corner outfield. wouldn't hurt. Vientos, DH, of course, and then you have Beatty at third and Alvarez at catching. And speaking of catching, here's the final update, talking about not good news for the Mets. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Omar Narvaez exited today's game with, if I'm not mistaken, a hamstring injury. I don't know the severity, but God forbid if it is to any significance, then that is assumably Francisco Alvarez time, unless the Mets do a very Mets thing by bringing up, say, a Michael Perez. So we'll have to watch that and see what the further news is on Narvaez's front over the next 24 hours or so, 24 to 48 hours, because the Mets don't play tomorrow. Pardon me. No, they do. I'll be at the home opener. Why am I even saying that? They don't play Friday, so I got my days confused. Tweaked a calf? Okay. He tweaked a baby cow. Got it. All right, let's get into this damn ball game. Again, this sucks. All right. So we talked about Beatty. We talked about Verlander. The game started. We're going to break down innings 1 through 9 now, and then I'll get to a lot of your questions, guys. And then we'll get out of here because we're going to be doing a live show later today, just like 3 hours from now or so, 3.5 hours for our latest Mets podcast. So stay tuned for that. If you want to be a pessimist, if you want to complain more, make sure you chime into tonight's show live on the channel as well, as we'll recap the series as a whole, share more of our raw emotions, first impressions of the season, and do a brief preview of the upcoming series starting tomorrow against Miami. With 1 out, Marte would have hit by pitch and a stolen base in the first. Francisco Lindor ends the Mets' scoreless drought of 20 innings there with a opposite field RBI double. That was your first run of the game. Vogie with a walk, and then McNeil with a flyout ends it. We get to the bottom of the first with Luis Gourmet. Makes a beautiful catch, diving there, third base, in between third and short. Beautiful catch there by Gourmet. Adames with a walk, but nothing else transpires. We then get to the bottom of this, the bottom of the second. Luke Voit with a strikeout, who had a very good day overall, defensively and offensively. Anderson with a walk. Jesse Winker with a double. Wouldn't be his last of the day, unfortunately. Miller with an RBI single. Weimer, the rook outfielder, who was just caught up not even a week ago, or right around a week ago, rips a 3-run ding-dong for his first home run of his career, just like what Terrain did with the Grand Salami in Game 1 of this series. Now we have Weimer with a 3-run home run, and just like that, it's 4-1 Mets deficit. Adames would have walked, but he was out, caught stealing. They went for the pickoff, caught in between first and second. Easy tag. So Mets are down 4-1 in the second. We get to the third. Marte with a bloop double to the right side, just stays fair. Lindor with an RBI single. Alonso then with his first of two-run bombs today for Big Meat Pete. So shout out Alonso again for stepping up when, aside from Lindor, the rest of the offense wasn't today. It's about time. Alonso shaved his mustache, went back to his normal bat, because entering the season, he was using a different Mariucci bat. If I'm saying Mariucci right, apologies if I'm not, for the baseball players out there. Instead of having the normal knob on the bat, he added on the slant kind of cut, and that's what helped him get his bombs last year. Went back to it today and hit 2 home runs with it, so safe to say he's going to go back to all reliable. We get to the bottom of the third, though, after it is a then tied ball. Was it a tied ball game? Yes, it was a tied ball game. 4-4 entering the bottom of the third. Contreras with a walk, Voit with a single. Nothing else happens there. We get to the fourth with 1 out, Narvaez with a single. Nothing else happens. In the bottom of the fourth with 2 outs, Brosseau with his base knock, Adames with his strikeout ends it. But yeah, David Pearson's day was done after 4 innings of 5 earned run ball, 5 walks. Not great for David. We all know the story with Pearson. When he's got the back foot slider working and the heater up and he's looking sharp. But today, struggle with the walks. That's always been his biggest issue in his young career with that arsenal. 5 strikeouts and 92 pitches. But still, again, the Mets stayed in this ball game, thankfully, but it wouldn't last too much longer, unfortunately. So we go to the 5th inning with a double. Thank you, Francisco Lindor, his second of the day. Pete Alonso with a 2-run ding-dong, his second 2-run bomb of the day, gives the Mets a 6-4 lead. We're all feeling electric. We're saying to ourselves, maybe the Mets are going to get out of Dodge here, get out of Milwaukee, and come out at least salvaging the series with some pop thanks to Pete Alonso and Lindor. Nope, we got ahead of ourselves. In the bottom of the 5th, Yelich with a walk. Then that's when Drew Smith came in, and Voit with a single. Winker with a 2-run double off of Drew Smith. It ties the ball game 6-6. We then get to the 6th inning and 7th inning. John Curtis with 2 scoreless innings, a 1-2-3 inning in the 6th with 2 strikeouts. In the 7th with 1 out, Contreras with a single, Voit with a strikeout, Anderson with a single ends it because he actually hits the runner, and William Contreras, the schmuck who was playing the trumpets last year but isn't this year, because you can clearly tell he obviously did it being an Atlanta Brave, knowing that Diaz does it. You can't tell me otherwise, right? But Contreras gets hit running between first and second, thankfully, to end the inning. So 2 scoreless innings there for John Curtis. Shout out to him as we go back to the pitching line here. But then, as we get further in the game, you have in the 8th with 1 out, Vogie gets on, LeCastro pinch runs for him, steals a bag, nothing else happens. David Robertson with a 1-2-3 inning there in the 8th, and then the 9th, we all know the story. Mitchell hits the walk-off bomb off of Ottavino, and that does her for the ball game. So, guys, I want to ask everybody, on a scale of 1 to 10, given this series and given everything that we've discussed, 2 blowout losses in game 1 and 2 combined, and today coming out and making a valiant effort to be in this ball game, but still losing in dramatic fashion, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your frustration level for the Mets here through their first week of games? Let me know in the live chat, and people on replay, let me know as well. And also want to let you guys all know that I will be attending tomorrow's game once more. I am very grateful to say that I am going to be sitting pretty much right behind home plate. Should be right around section 4 or so. So I don't think I'll actually be on TV. I think I'll just be out of the range of TV. But look out for your boy. I will be roaming around Citi Field a little bit tomorrow, hoping to meet a lot of you awesome Mets fans for the home opener. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Very, very excited for the home opener tomorrow with my boy McGill on the bump. Hopefully the Mets, again, can just have an all-around team effort and get the win. That's the biggest thing for me. I was expecting JV to start, but, McGill, right now he's looking like one of the best Mets starters through the first week of games. So we'll see how he does. Let's see, extreme 100 on the frustration, 100 minus 10. Wow, it's interesting how this is varying, but a lot of people are just very frustrated. Darren's at a 9. If Darren's at a 9 out of 10, shout out to you, my man, great member. Eugene's at a 5, Steven at a 5, Dave at a 10 as well. Let me put it this way. My frustration level is easily at a 7 right now, but it's short-term frustration. I know the sky isn't falling or anything, but I'm royally pissed off by what I just witnessed of a series. I'm happy, again, that they got the type of offensive production that we had been looking for the past 2 days today. But, of course, the Mets don't have the pitching back it up, nor do they have the depth in their offense today, hitting-wise, to help back up the big boppers in the lineup, which, again, is the complete opposite of what we saw in games 1 and 2. It's like we just couldn't find that balance today, I guess, right? Alonso Lindor looked sharp. Nothing from McNeil, nothing from Canna. McNeil had one bad at-bat, too, where we really need a hit from him late. I think it was the 8th. Nito came in because of Narvaez. Narvaez did have a hit today. It was 1 for 4, so I don't have that on the graphic because this is live update with how the game usually ends. But Nimmo 0 for 5, not having your place setter. I mean, we had Nimmo looking sharp yesterday, 3 hits. But yesterday when we had the place setter earlier in the games to lead off those hits, we had no one to drive him in. Now today, if you're not a Lindor Alonso, there's no offensive production whatsoever. I mean, it is what it is. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Mets go about this early adversity this year. If it leads to them making some changes of significance, I doubt. But it's going to be very interesting to let's see how they do. Let's see. Patrick, thank you so much for the donation. It says, Gain outscored 26-7 by some mid is sad as fuck. Yeah, it is. It is. But again, I'm not going to sit here and say that, the Brewers didn't deserve their runs. They barreled baseballs. They played great defense this series. Mets, did they perform to their caliber? No, of course they didn't. But it's not. I cannot sit here and denounce what the Brewers did in this series because they looked phenomenal. I mean, they looked absolutely phenomenal. They did everything right in the series, from getting enough pitching, especially in games 1 and 2, to just they outclassed the Mets. They embarrassed the Mets. They wiped the floor with the Mets as they are now sweeping up the remains of the Mets in there because they just swept the Mets. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating, to say the least. Very frustrating. I will say, though, we're going to take a quick pivot here because as we debuted on the channel yesterday, I'm very grateful that I'm sponsored with, we are doing a partnership with Sorare MLB for a good portion of the season. And as I broke down yesterday, but in a nutshell for you guys, again, this is an awesome MLB fantasy app that you can download free of charge. And right away, you draft your own team and you compete in weekly tournaments. And how you perform in said tournaments is directly based on how your actual players perform that you draft. And you have to be very strategic on how you pick your players for the right week based on matchups because you have 2 tournaments a week that each tournament lasts around 3 days or so. So right now, as you can see, I'm ranked 187th out of roughly 3,600 people in this prospect tournament. Dylan Cease got me 25 points today. Andrew Chafin, 8 points. Pete Alonso was a -1 heading into today, but thanks to those 2 bombs, you get 20 points apiece. So I'm at 38 with him. Lindor with 28 points. Masataka Yoshida with 24 points. Yo Mikado with 12. And Shane McClanahan start today and win versus the Nationals, 26 points. I absolutely love this game. You do tournaments weekly. Your prizes, depending on how you rank in your tournaments, can include free MLB tickets for your favorite team, other types of MLB-related things, and even upgrading your cards without having to pay a dime for them. Because just like as you would in a normal MLB The Show game or any game where you're building your own team, you know how there's tiers of cards. You have your base cards, then you have your specialty cards, then you have all these different tiers. So unless you want to pay to opt in for those specific tournaments and get those exclusive cards that are exclusive to you, you can win them by performing well in your tournament. So there's a lot of incentive. Again, I absolutely love this game, so I got to share it with you again. And again, we'll shout out once more for Sorare for being a great partner. So all you guys got to do is click the link in the description for this video. Sign up. Again, you don't have to spend a dime. If you don't want to, just go in and play however you want. And make sure you share your team with me over social media on Twitter and let me know how you're doing each week as you face off against me in tournaments and other great MLB content creators, including Giraffe Neck Mark, Fuzzy, Jim at Ballcap Sports, just to name a few, Daddy Demu. I mean, the list goes on and on. A lot of people are partnering with them. So make sure to check them out. And again, shout out to Sorare once more. I love this game. The fact that they're a partner with me means so much to me because I actually love this game. Was locked in playing it today. And I'm happy to see my team is performing well, as you see there. I know my camera's a little bit in the way. But that's my team right now, and it will be ever-changing each week. So make sure to check out Sorare MLB. Link is in the description. And thank you guys all so much in advance, as always. All right, Narvaez injury, yep. Hopefully it's nothing serious on his front, because if Narvaez is seriously hurt at all, then that's going to lead to one of 2 options. If Francisco Alvarez call up way earlier than expected, or what I feel like what is surprising the slightest, the Mets bring up Michael Perez. If it's a short-term injury, but say he's out at least a week or 2, that is definitely somewhere where I could see them bring up Perez. But do I still want to see, is there still a situation where I could easily see them in a spot where they decide to go with Alvarez? Maybe, but I don't know. Who knows what this Mets team right now and when they want to properly bring up the kids. Honestly. All right, guys. Let's see. What's going on, Wicked? How are you? And again, appreciate everyone chiming in. We've had between 300 and 400 live viewers today. Like I said, we're going to wrap things up in the next 10 minutes. This will not be an overly long show today, mainly because we will be live again right around between 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Hopefully more around 8, as long as we can be on time. The audio is good. Myself and Joe Sorare for our first podcast of the 2023 season. We don't have the name or logo yet in place for the new pod, along with a new channel. But once that is all in place, which will be in the course of the next couple weeks to a month, because we have a lot of awesome things coming for our new podcast. Once that is all unveiled, I will make sure to share it with you guys, and you guys can follow new accounts, channels, and all that stuff. But yeah, make sure to chime into the live show tonight if you want to share further frustration, raw thoughts on the Mets, and hear Joe's perspective along with mine on this series as a whole and our overall first impressions for the Mets, what has gone right this season thus far, which isn't nearly as strong as what has gone wrong as the Mets begin their first 7 games, a week span, 3-4 on the year, and they have a losing road trip now as they head back home finally. It's not a big worry yet until the All-Star break. I mean, even when you get to the All-Star break, it's a lot of things. I mean, we've seen teams be absolutely not strong at all in the first half, and then the second half be really strong. Let me see. Dave Diamond. Oh, Dave, I apologize for missing it, my man. He says, call up Beatty and Vientos, a wave bye to Escobar and Vogie. I don't see Escobar and Vogie being parted with this early in the season, especially Vogelback. I don't see either of them being parted with until an absolute earliest trade deadline, if the Mets really want to mix things up. There is a world, remember, there is a world where the Mets can bring up Beatty right now instead of Escobar on this roster. It would just likely mean that they're going to have to send down LeCastro, and as much as I love Timmy, I can understand that. Where it gets tricky is with Vientos. If you bring up, say, if you had both Vientos and Beatty on the roster, then you would likely have to do some moves. How about a contest to pick a name for your podcast? It's possible. We already have some things in the works, so I'm not necessarily certain about that, but it's a cool idea. If we feel that we would like to do that, then I'll certainly reach out to you guys and let you know. Is anyone going to the game tomorrow, too? Let me know in the live chat. If anyone's going to the home opener tomorrow, make sure to look out for your short schmucked boy. I'm not sure what I'm going to wear yet. It depends on the weather. It's going to be rainy tomorrow, so hopefully not much of a rain delay. But I will be there, and like I said, I'll be behind home plate, just a couple rows back. So make sure to look out for me at the game if you're going to be there tomorrow. Reach out to me on social media, if not the channel, and I'll definitely try my best to meet up with as many of you guys as I can while also paying attention to the game. Bring your rain gear in case the game is postponed tomorrow. I really hope it's not postponed. That's going to suck because I don't even reside in New York. You guys know I live in PA, so I take a hike. I have to leave earlier tomorrow morning to get there early as is. So hopefully it's not hopefully it's not postponed. Unfortunately, I am, says Alec. Again, if there's any positive takeaways, the Mets don't play in Milwaukee tomorrow. If the Mets still played in Milwaukee tomorrow and I had tickets, I would give away those tickets for free on the channel. Easily. David Pearson is the new Steven Matz up and down. I mean, I feel like Pearson's already been more healthy than Matz throughout their respective young careers on the same timeline. Pearson definitely struggles with the walks, as does a lot of lefties. There are very few like pure dominant lefties in the game right now, and it's led by Shane McClanahan. Jesus Luzardo can become that, but he still struggles a little bit once he gets through a couple innings. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys. I might dress up like the Statue of Liberty. No, I will not do that. The Short Schmuck podcast, the only issue is I'm the only short schmuck on the pod, so that doesn't hold true. Joe is like 6'4", 6'5". Rec is at least, I think Rec's around 6'2". So no, it would be funny. It's like a different version of 2.5 Men. That would be funny, but no, that won't happen. Didn't even play a home game yet. Oh, trust me, we're keeping the faith. It's also fair to share your frustrations at the same time, as we all are, after what was a putrid, and I mean putrid, performance by the Mets overall in the series. I'm happy that some bats showed up today, but I'm not happy enough because they didn't come out with the victory. Guys, we are going to be wrapping these up in a minute. If the Mets wait till trade deadline to make a move with the young kids, they will be so far out of it won't matter. I mean, that's not entirely. If you're saying the Mets wait till the trade deadline to bring up the kids, yeah, I don't love that idea. I want and expect them to bring up Beatty especially sooner. That's for sure. If the Mets wait until the trade deadline to bring up Beatty, then that's already a massive mistake. Assuming that Escobar continues being consistent. If Eddie goes on a tear as Mr. September, but this time Mr. May, Mr. June, then it's a different discussion. A Wardy bobblehead does not exist, but it should, considering I look like one to begin with. My head's a freaking melon. I stay on till late. No, that's not happening, Kevin. Guys, I love you all to death, though. Again, shitty game, shitty series. Heartbreaking end to the game, I should say. It wasn't a shitty game overall, but it was definitely frustrating. Shout out to Sorare once more. Make sure to check them out. Links in the description. That is your pitching stats. One more. Ottavino, Curtis, Peterson, Smith, Robertson. You're 1 through 5 on the pitching front. And that's 5 because I can do math today, which is surprising. Then let's get on to the hitting once more. Nemo Ofer. Marte 1 for 3 with 2 runs scored and a stolen base. In which he already has 3 stolen bases this year. Lindor 3 for 4 with 2 runs, 2 RBIs, 2 doubles. Alonso 2 for 4. That's why he's player of the game, and nothing from anybody else when you go down that list. Alrighty, guys. I love you. This sucks, but we'll bounce back, hopefully. We will be back again later tonight at the time of recording this. It is April 5th, so before we have that early day game with Tyler McGill on the bump tomorrow, facing, I'd imagine it's Edward Cabrera, or it might be Trevor Rogers actually tomorrow. Whoever it's going to be, we'll see how that game goes. I'll be in attendance. And then tomorrow's game, I might do a live stream, not guaranteed though. A live stream, or I think a pre-recorded video is probably more likely as of now. We'll see how the game goes because I'll be in attendance there, so stay tuned. But yeah, tonight, 8 p.m. or so Eastern, look out for the latest new live show of the podcast, myself and Joe, and I will see you guys then. Have a great rest of your night, day, evening, folks. Whenever you're watching this, this is Wardy signing out until further notice.